Today I'm going to be showing you guys how I created a custom book box similar to some of the book subscription boxes that you see out there for my novel Meet Me at the Summit. I created the box entirely myself, so today I'm going to be breaking down how much it cost me to create the box. I'm going to be telling you how much profit I made from the box, and of course I'll be also revealing the gifts as I go, telling you where they are in the book and how much each gift cost me to create. Now, this is not a book subscription box that I created. It was a one-off box that I created for my book, Meet Me at the Summit, and I called it the Book Adventure Box. Now, I'm doing this video because in a previous video where I broke down the full expenses for creating Meet Me at the Summit, from the editing costs to the marketing costs, I did not break down the costs of creating the Book Adventure Box, and you guys were interested, so that's what we're doing today. But if you haven't seen my full expense video yet where I talk about the cost of hiring my editors and the different marketing promo that I did, be sure to watch the video. It is linked down below. Otherwise, stay tuned and we're going to talk all about the Book Adventure Box. Hello everyone, my name is Mandi Lynn. I'm an author, book cover designer, and the creator of the Book Launch Planner, and today, like I said, we're breaking down the Book Adventure Box. Now your first question may be, why did you decide to create your own box rather than get your book featured in another book subscription box? Now that is a great question, and the answer is pretty simple, is that I tried to get my book featured in other book subscription boxes and actually came very close to getting it in a book subscription box. But at the end of the day, it's really hard as an indie author to get your book featured in one of those boxes because they need to know what books are going to be on what month way ahead of time, and indie authors, our books just aren't ready in time usually for subscription boxes. Usually once your book is done, like completely done and edited, your book is going to get published very soon after that. Logistically, it's just really hard to work out, and on top of that, most subscription boxes don't even want to work with indie authors. And it's just unfortunate. So I took things into my own hands and created the Book Adventure Box. And a lot of you guys were like, oh, you should make this a permanent subscription box. Like, make it like a thing where you also do other indie authors as well. And I think by the end of this video, you will learn why that is not going to be a thing. Because this was a lot of work. So how many boxes did I have? Now that was the great debate going into this. Was I had never done something like this before. I knew that I needed to have a specific number, that I couldn't just sell them endlessly because I need to order stock, but I also didn't want to order too much stock. And you could say like, oh, only take pre-orders, and how many pre-orders is how many boxes you send out, but it was really just complicated and a lot of moving parts, and it would be really hard to just not have a defined number. So eventually I settled on the fact that I was going to order 48 boxes because I had no clue what I was doing, and I was pretty confident that I could sell 48 of them, and I was not 100% confident that I would sell 100 of them because that was the next option. So that's why I ended up with 48. Just because a lot of the stuff I ordered, like the lowest quantity you could order was 48, and then the next highest quantity was like 100. So that's where my numbers came from, and 48 felt like a safe bet. So with that said, let's go into the gift reveals, and as I tell you guys about the different gifts in this book, I will tell you how much they cost and where I got them from. So the first gift is on page 19. As you can see, I have this lovely sticky note that says open gift. At this point in the story, Marley is being picked up at the airport by her uncle, and her uncle is driving an old VW bus, and it's the first time that she's seeing it. So obviously the most appropriate thing was for the gift to be this adorable VW Bus enamel pin. I was super excited about this enamel pin. It is from wizardpins.com. It is 1.25 inches and I am obsessed with it, but I will also say this was the most expensive thing that I bought. Now I couldn't buy just 48, at least I don't think I could. I can't remember. Either way, I bought 100 of them because I wanted extras to sell at like book signings and on my store. So if you didn't get a chance to get this pin when it was in the book adventure box, you can buy it now. It will be linked below. But I bought 100 of them for $316.13. And I will say the good news is that I bought 100, but they sent me 110. And this is because sometimes they will have like misprints where there's like a bubble in it or there's some sort of scratch on it. And they send you the extras kind of make up for that. So when I got mine, I did have to sort through them and like put to the side the ones that were too messed up to sell. And another expense was that I got the pins as just pins. So I ended up buying backing cards, and they're just business cards that I designed. And then you put the pin through it and then you hold it in there, and it's a cute little display. For my business cards, I bought 100 of them to go with the 100 pins that I bought, and I spent $17 on that. On page 64, we have Marley getting settled into the VW bus that's also a converted camper van. So she had taken a trip to Walmart to get some fairy lights to make it more personal and feel like home. So, of course, the gift was going to be fairy lights. Now, I actually don't have my fairy lights. I bought just enough of everything, and unfortunately, one person, when they got their box, it had somehow, like, ripped open in the process. So they were missing some of their gifts, and one of them was the fairy light. So I had kept one box for myself, and that meant that I had to give that person my little fairy lights, which is perfectly fine. So I don't have the fairy lights to show you, but just know they were cute little battery-powered fairy lights. And those fairy lights I just bought off of Amazon in bulk, and I bought 48 of them for $110.28. The next gift is on page 82. In this scene, Marley is with her friend Lori, and they are talking about her hiking notebook. And in the book, it's a notebook that she uses to kind of document all the hikes that she wants to go on in the future. There's more to it than that, but basically I wanted to give the reader their own version of that notebook, or at least a blank version of that notebook. So I had found this adorable notebook online, and it had a VW bus on it, so it was just perfect and I couldn't resist, and it's pocket sized and I'm kind of obsessed. It's definitely my favorite gift in the box, and this was also the hardest gift to find because I knew I wanted a notebook to symbolize the notebook that Marley had, but I didn't want it to look cheap because at the end of the day I did have to make some form of profit, and if I got a really fancy notebook I wouldn't make any profit. But I really lucked out because I found a wholesale website that I could shop on, and I was able to buy 48 of these notebooks at wholesale price. So that meant each notebook only cost me like $3 or so, when normally it would cost like $9 or $10. So that meant in total I spent $169.67. And fun fact, right after I bought all of these notebooks for the book adventure box, the retailer I bought them off of upped the price by like $1, so I felt like I really made out. The next gift is on page 190. In this scene, Marley's trying to figure out what photo she should use to print out and showcase in a cafe where she'll be able to sell her photos. So I wanted to capture a very specific memory from when her parents were still alive. For those of you who don't know, Meet Me at the Summit is a coming-of-age young adult story about a girl who goes on a road trip after both of her parents died. And the road trip is just her way of coming face to face with her grief for the first time and learning to live again, because that's something that she hasn't done since her parents have passed away. So for the photo that she chose to print out in the story, I wanted it to mean something to her. And in the book, it's a photo of her mom holding a sun dollar during a sunset. So I was able to come up with my own photo myself. That is actually my hand holding the sun dollar. And I took this photo when my husband and I were on vacation in Maryland. And I made my husband wake up very early in the morning so we could catch the sunrise. And I searched gift shop to gift shop to purchase this sand dollar that I could use in this photo. And I think it was like $2 to purchase this sand dollar. Now, I also had to pay to print the photos, but there's another photo that I printed as well, so I'll tell you about the expense of that later. The next gift is on page 248. Now, in this scene, Marley and Dylan have gone on like a wild horse tour. There's a place in North Carolina that you can go to see wild horses, and they have tours, and that's what Marley and Dylan have gone on. And of course, during the tour, Marley took a photo of one of the little baby horses, so I wanted to capture that in a photo. And I'm proud to say that also when I was in Maryland, they have wild horses, although they're more ponies than horses because they're just smaller in size. But we found a little baby horse, and I took a photo, and there was like a kayak in the background, but I was able to Photoshop it out. Both the photos that were used as gifts for the book adventure box were photos that I took myself personally, so it felt a little special in that sense. Now, that meant that for the 48 boxes, I had to print about 100 photos. So that was simple and easy. It cost me $14.88 to get all those photos printed. And the last gift in the box, the most special gift in my opinion, is on page 307. This is a tiny spoiler to the story because it has a lot to do with like the finale moment. So if you don't want to know about it, skip to the time that is listed on the screen. But spoilers aside, the final gift is a little thing of bubbles. Now, I had to wrap them in like a little plastic baggie because I was worried that it would leak in some way, shape, or form. And apparently there's also a law of shipping things that have water in them if it's over 2 ounces. Either way, this was under 2 ounces, so I didn't have to worry about it. But it's just this little jar of bubbles with a little bubble wand. And like I said, spoilers ahead, but every year Marley and her dad would hike Mount Washington, and when they got to the top, her dad would blow bubbles as a way of like signifying the end of summer and the start of the new school year. And so this is the first time that Marley is doing the hike without him. And Dylan snuck a little thing of bubbles into her backpack so the tradition could live on. And it was a very touching moment and one of my personal favorite moments in the story. So, yeah. But these little bubbles I got from a company called Oriental Trading. They do like parties. I assume this is actually meant for a wedding since it's white, but I was able to get 48 of them for $15.53. Now, also included in the box, but not technically gifts, is a little bit of swag items. So the first one is this postcard. And then I also have these vinyl stickers. Now, for people who got the box that didn't have the signed book, there was also a signed book plate. And lastly, there was also a bookmark in the box. Now, those are all the gifts, but that's not where the expenses end because I also had to figure out how to wrap the gifts. Now, I found that the easiest way to wrap them was to find a one-size-fits-all solution, and that was these little envelopes. Apparently, it's made of bamboo, but they're just little envelopes that I bought off of Amazon, and I made sure they were just big enough to fit all of the gifts without any issues. The tightest fit for sure was this notebook because as you can see, it's just barely wide enough and it just barely fits in this little envelope. but it did the trick and it was extremely cost effective. Now I had to buy a ton of these because each box needed 6 of these to wrap up gifts in, but even at that I only had to spend $51.76 on all the little envelopes that I needed for wrapping. And lastly, I needed a box that I could ship everything in, and I wanted to make sure that it was going to be sturdy and things were going to get squished and destroyed. And I was able to buy a bunch of boxes for $49.98, and I will admit the box is just barely big enough. I no longer have any boxes left, but just know, like, see how big this book is? That's how big the box was, with just like an inch or two to spare in terms of like width. So I just barely fit all the gifts in the boxes, and I almost had a heart attack when I like made the box for the first time because I didn't think it would all fit. Now, not included in all the cost breakdown that I'm talking about today, for one, the postcard and vinyl stickers, they weren't meant for the book adventure box. I bought them as pre-order items to encourage people to pre-order my book, so that's why I'm not including them in the cost breakdown today. I did include them in the cost breakdown for Meet Me at the Summit as a whole, so the cost has been accounted for, just not for the book adventure box. Also not included in cost is the signed book plate, and that is because I made these myself. As some of you guys may know, I have a store called Stone Ridge Stickers, and I design and print my own stickers there, and I sell them through the store, and because of that I have sticker paper, so I basically just designed a sticker that I could make into a book plate. I also didn't include the cost of my bookmarks because I always have hundreds of bookmarks on hand anyways, so I threw it into the box because why not? And then I also didn't include the cost of creating the sticky notes that are inside the book that say open gift. And that is because I already had the sticky notes on hand, and I used my Cricut machine to write the word open gift onto the sticky note because one, my handwriting is terrible, and two, even if my handwriting wasn't terrible, I needed 282 sticky notes that said open gift on them, and I did not want to write that much. And the last thing that the cost is now accounted for is the page number stickers that are on all the gifts. And this is because, again, I already had the sticker paper, so it was supplies that I already had. All I had to do was print it out onto the sticker paper and cut it using my Cricut. Simple as that. And the last thing that I needed to do this book box, but that the expenses aren't taken into account for, is my Shopify store, because like I said, it's something that I already have. It's something that's already running in the background. So it didn't cost me anything extra because I already have the store. But if you are someone who doesn't already have an online store, it's something that you're gonna have to keep into account. Because honestly, there is a lot of moving parts in creating the book adventure box. And if I didn't have all these things like a Shopify store and Cricut and all this other different software that I already have kind of running in the background, it would have been way more expensive for me to create the book adventure box, and probably even impossible for me to create the book adventure box. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned it. Oh, and of course, the boxes also sometimes included the book, and I say sometimes because people had the option to buy either just the box or the box with the signed book. At the end of the day, I sold 44 boxes that included the book, so I had to purchase 44 books, and that ended up being $339.24. So all of that is a grand total of $747.23, and that's how much money I had to invest into this little project, which meant I had to work really hard to make that back and then get profit afterwards. But before we talk about profit, I do want to talk about the cost per box, because it was something that I was keeping into account, because I need to keep the cost per box low. Otherwise, I would have to make the cost of the box super high. And I had done like a quick survey with my audience, and I knew that people had like a range that they wanted to pay, and I wanted to stay within that range, which was actually kind of hard. To help visualize, I will give you guys my little chart breakdown on the screen. It is kind of out of order, so please forgive, but I am going to go through it quickly just so we don't spend too much time on it. So as you can see, on the left column is the total price I paid per item, and then on the right column is like how much it would cost to put each item in each box when you divide it by 48. So to print a copy of Meet Me at the Summit, it would cost me $7.71 per box. That is because I printed through Ingram Spark, because if I printed through Kindle Direct Publishing, it would have that ugly not for resale banner across the cover, and obviously I can't sell a copy of a book that has that across the cover. The fairy lights were $2.30 per box. The box that I used for shipping was $1.04. The gift wrap, which are again these little envelopes, was $1.08 per box. The enamel pin was $6.59 per box. That is because even though I bought 100 of them, I still only divided it by 48 because I was like, even if I don't sell all the pins later on, I want to still make sure I make my money back. The notebook was $3.53 per box. The bubbles were 32 cents per box. The photos were 31 cents per box. The sand dollar, because I did spend money to buy the sand dollar, was 4 cents per box. And the business cards to create the backing to the enamel pins was 35 cents per box, which meant that each box cost me $23.27 to create, and that is when it includes the book inside it. So as you can see, not the cheapest thing in the world to create, which is why I had to price it a little higher. Honestly, part of me wanted to price it way higher than I had it, but I couldn't get myself to do it because I was worried that people would either complain or no one was gonna buy it. So with that said, let's talk about profit. So I've got another chart because you guys know I love charts. I have it broken down to the 2 different tiers. Tier 1 is the cheaper tier, and that's when people bought just the box. And then tier 2 is the more expensive tier, and that's when someone bought the book. Because like I said, it cost me $7.71 to print this physical book and ship it to myself and all of that. So when you take the book out of the equation, the box costs $15.53. I ended up deciding on a price of $19.99. And that meant I was making a profit of $4.43. And then for tier 2, when people bought the box with the book, it cost $23.27. And I priced it at $32.99 and made a profit of $9.72. And when I was coming up with these prices, I wanted to make sure that people were getting like something of value. So when I was trying to figure out the price, I wanted to first figure out what the value of everything was individually. So like say someone bought a pen and someone bought bubbles and someone bought a notebook. Like I wanted to figure out the retail price of everything, add it up, and then compare that to what people were actually purchasing. So that's why I have another column that says value. So for tier 1, just the box, the value is $35 and people are paying $19.99. And for tier 2, the box and the signed book, it's a value of $55 and you're paying $32.99. Like it may sound like, oh, you made $9.72 for profit, that's great. But when you're talking about only 42 boxes, it's really not a whole lot of profit, not as much as you wish it was, especially since like half the profit is this book. So I'm not actually making a lot of money off of the box itself, and it was a ton of work. I'll make a playlist of all the videos that are behind the scenes content of making the book adventure box, because I made a video where I talked about it when it was at the very beginning of stages. I made a video when I was, making the boxes themselves, like assembling it and putting everything into the little envelopes. It was a lot of work, and I will now tell you guys how much I made. So for tier 1, I sold 4 boxes and made a profit of $17.73. And then for tier 2, which is the box that has the signed book in it, I sold 44 of them and made $427.80, which means I had a total profit of $445.53. Obviously, I had jumped into this knowing that I wouldn't make a huge profit off of it, because before I ordered everything, I had done all this math ahead of time. So I went into this knowing that the amount of time that went into it versus the amount of money that came out of it would not equal up. But I genuinely enjoy doing like little boxes like this. That's not to say I want to do this a lot, because I'm glad I did it, but I'm not sure if I'd ever do it again. I would say it was an okay business decision on my part, because I still made $445.53. That's still money in my pocket, and that's after expenses and everything that I talked about today. It's not the most worthwhile thing when it comes to my time. There's one thing I've learned as an entrepreneur, and that is how valuable my time is. I've had to put a lot of things that I love to do to the side because other things make me more money. And it sucks to say it, but I have bills to pay, and I can't always make decisions based off of what's the most fun for me. So yes, this was incredibly fun, but no, it was not the most profitable thing in the world. Now, do I recommend other authors to do it? I think it really depends. I found this really fun to do, and I felt safe doing it. Now, I don't know if I'd be able to say the same thing if I aimed for 100 boxes, because it was relatively easy to sell the 48 boxes, but I don't think that would be the case if I did 100 boxes. So I think if you want to do something like this, you need to be really honest with yourself in how many boxes you think you can sell. Because at the end of the day, like right now, 16,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's great, right? But that does not translate to 16,000 sales. If anything, I feel like it's maybe less than 5% of my subscribers will ever buy my book. I'll be honest, I'm pulling that number out of thin air. But you get the idea, is out of the number of followers you have on social media, a tiny percent of them will actually buy your book. Plus, you also have to take into account the fact that you may not enjoy shipping stuff. I know people who hate the process of shipping. I personally found the whole gift wrapping thing very fun. Now, granted, it was during a time that was very stressful, which was the release of my book. So there were definitely times where I was like, this box is stupid. Why did I think to do this? But I'm really glad I did it. Plus, I was just living for every single time someone took a photo of their box and posted it on social media, or did a sort of little unboxing on social media. Whenever people were like bragging about their little gifts, I was obsessed, and for me, that was worth it. It wasn't about the profit, it was about the joy of seeing people open their boxes, because to me, that was the best part. So that is it for today's video. If you want more videos like this, be sure to subscribe. And if you want exclusive content, be sure to join as a YouTube member, where I post exclusive monthly videos about my goal setting and marketing strategy. And I also talk a little bit more about my income there as well. So if you want to become a member, be sure to check it out. The link will be down below. Otherwise, that is it, and I will see you guys all next week.